If I had a choice of losing all of my money and losing all my relationships, I would lose all my money in a heartbeat because my relationships will help me get my money back. And if I had a pile of money and no relationships left, that would be pretty empty. That's not really success.
Welcome to the Build the Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on the journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth starts every single day with a mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. My name is Brett Swartz. We're on a journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can give more, all of it away. And we're bringing on guests to help us do just that. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of Pennsylvania, and he became curious about the prospects of investing in rental properties when someone built 16 townhomes on his newspaper route in junior high. And after obtaining his bachelor's degree in accounting, he opened an accounting practice while also pursuing other passions. And along the way, he began flipping houses. Okay. And he's done this well over 100 flips. And he's going to be talking with us, not just about some real estate stuff, but actually really about the difference between riches and wealth. And then we'll build and we'll talk about his book as well that he has. Please welcome to the show with me, Joel Miller. Joel, how are we doing?
Hey, Brett, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So let's
Talk about something other than just the nitty gritty of buying and owning rental
Yes.
property.
Yes, because most of our listeners are they know those things, right? And they've done it for many years, and they've done it in scale on large apartment complexes and big businesses and such. So, yeah, they've made their millions, and maybe now they're looking at the difference between riches and wealth. So Joel, what is the number one secret between riches and wealth, and what's the difference between the two?
Well, I kind of liken the difference between riches and wealth to the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Not knowledge is simply you have the facts and things like that, but wisdom is knowing what to do with the facts, how to make wise decisions, and actually apply the knowledge properly. It's kind of also like the difference between talent and skill. You might be born with some talent, but until you develop talent, you don't have any skill at it. So with riches and wealth, it's the difference between just having cash and knowing how to do good with the cash. That's the wealth.
Oh, this is so good. I love the way you put that.
Partly being happy with what you got.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, right? So it's not just the knowledge, right? You say riches, it's the wealth is the way that you apply the knowledge and practice it with your values, with strategic, thought, with discernment, with discipline. Is that a good way to think about it when you're thinking about riches and wealth?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I teach landlord one-on-one classes, and I end up speaking in front of a lot of groups, and or at least around here, I'm well known for what I'm going to tell you right now, making this statement, and that is, if I had a choice of losing all of my money and losing all my relationships, I would lose all my money in a heartbeat because my relationships will help me get my money back. And if I had a pile of money and no relationships left, that would be pretty empty. That's not really success, from what I can say. So I would conclude that by saying, don't make a withdrawal from a good relationship just to make a deposit in your bank account.
Wow, that's really powerful. I love the way you put that, right? Don't make a withdrawal from your relationship just to make a deposit in your bank account. The other thing is, don't trade what's priceless for what's profitable, right? I think it's another way to think about it as well. When people have a mindset that's not focused on the things that are going to be lasting impact or lasting for their character, right? Lasting for making a difference and an impact, it can be really, really, really challenging. So what would you say the number one mindset, a practice that you practice that helps you to stay, focused on a wealth mindset versus just a riches mindset?
Well, you have to understand that you're just a steward of anything you have in this life. And you want to be a good steward. I believe that God entrusts people with things that make life nice because they because he believes that they're not going to just hold on to it and say, okay, I've got this, and nobody else has it, and nobody else can use it. You've got to let it flow back out, with contributions to your community and organizations that you care about, and into the relationships around you, and so when you are thinking about squeezing every last dime out of every transaction that you have with people that you really want to concentrate on actually having a relationship for the long term, and then that can work against you. You might end up with a few more cents, in your pocket, but you've made a withdrawal from that relationship when you're making it that so that somebody else feels slighted somehow, or you could have done better in that transaction, uh, if you looked at the big picture of
Got it.
maintaining the relationships.
This is really good. So stewardship is the number one mindset to realize that, these gifts, these talents, this wealth, we've built, it's been, gifted and we've been blessed with, that we're stewards of it, not owners of it. It's meant to be a blessing and to flow out versus flow in. So that's the first mindset part of it. What would you say is the second, mindset to make sure you're practicing a wealth mindset versus just a riches mindset?
Well, you've got to make sure that you don't have a how do I put this, like a poor mindset, a scarcity.
Scarcity mindset.
Mindset of
Yeah.
scarcity. You know,
Yeah.
if you want it to come in, it's got to go out too. You know, and if you are concentrating on just, gosh, I'll never be able to replace this money or this. I need to. It's also scarce. I need to hold on to everything. Then you develop a scarcity mentality, and you trip over the dimes to get to the dollars, so to speak, because you are just concentrating on how much things are scarce instead of how much things are in abundance.
Okay, good. Have a mindset of abundance versus a mindset of scarcity.
Right.
Don't
Right.
trip over dimes to get to dollar. To don't trip over I guess
Dimes to get
dollars
to
to get to
dollars.
dimes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because
What?
wealth kind of represents the happiness or the fullness in your life that you feel because of what you have. I mean, you can have lots of money while you're still, feeling miserable, because the things you have acquired with your cash do not make you happy. You know, on the other hand, if you have a little cash and few possessions, you can still actually feel wealthy, because of your relationships, and the fact that your physical needs are met, by the cash and the possessions you do have. But that gets back to kind of being happy with what you've got. There's no harm in wanting to have more than what you have, but you can't do that at the expense of relationships, or um, at the expense of not letting it flow back out with things that you either buy and create jobs for other
Yep.
people, or you give. You know.
Yep. And so I was studying Charlie Munger recently, and he talks about a story about when he was in the war. He was air traffic controller for aircraft carriers in the ocean,
All
and
right.
for pilots they're going to land, right. And he said, I didn't know what I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't trained very well, and like I basically was showing up like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for keeping these pilots alive, and so I didn't know what to do. And so he said, I decided to invert the problem. And I decided to say, if I wanted to kill every one of these pilots, what would I do? And he
uh,
goes, I do. He came through two main conclusions. Number one, I'd make sure they get in these flying positions where their wings and like the altitudes like would basically cause them to lose control and crash. Okay, number one, that's what I would do. Number two, I would make sure they'd never have enough fuel to ever make it back to the aircraft carrier. They'd run out of gas. Okay. So then he said, let me invert it one more time. Okay. So then what to keep it really simple. So he said, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to focus on these two things. Number one, never put our pilots in a position where their altitude could change so drastically that they crash, lose control. Number two, we never ever run out of fuel. We never send them too far on a mission or too far on a thing, based upon like we're never going to run out of fuel. Like we're never going to do that. So if we control those two things, the rest of it tends to take care of itself. Okay. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, Joel, where do you feel people squander their life when it comes to relationships? Like what trades are they making that like if they'd known and had a little bit more awareness, they would never make the trade, right? That you can give us some wisdom on today.
Well, it's actually what I said before about, just trying to, mistakenly trying to squeeze every last dime out of every deal that you make or transaction without the other person feeling that they've met their goals successfully as well. I mean, the best deals you put together are win-win situations or win-win-win-win. I mean, you're flipping a house, you've got a lot of sides that can have a win there. Like you, the seller, the new buyer or tenant, the bank that is finally getting rid of maybe a bank-owned property. It just goes on and on. And so you just need to take other people's positions into consideration.
Yeah, do unto those who want to do unto you. Make sure you're trying to make it a win for every single stakeholder, the real estate agent or the bank and the lender and the escrow and the seller and the buyer and try to make it a win-win-win-win. I love that. Okay, great. So we talked about some mindset. We've talked about riches versus wealth. What questions haven't I asked you so far about the difference between wealth versus riches that you really want to touch on?
Well, I actually have a couple of comments I could add to, not specifically an answer to one of your questions, but I want to point out that in my book, which is called Build Real Estate Wealth, that's what it's about, building real estate wealth, and the subtitle is Enjoy the Journey of Rental Property Investment. I was telling you that we start out talking about mindset before we get into the whole acquisition management and all that stuff. And one of the things that I had in the book was with permission from somebody named Jeff Pizzino. He and I had contributed articles to the same magazine back in the 90s and didn't know each other then. Then I wanted to quote one of those articles. And so when I was writing the book, I got in touch with him for permission, and we ended up talking on the phone, had a great time. And he had written an article about the 10 myths about wealth. And I put 2 of those myths in the book. Now, I'm going to tell you what they are, but remember, this is a statement, but this is a myth. Myth number 6 is being wealthy is all about material possessions. Okay, that's kind of a myth because, what he says is there's a huge difference between accumulating money and being wealthy. Above all, never pursue money at the expense of your health. We haven't really touched on that, but that's important too. Peace of mind, loving relationships, and just enjoying personal activities. Money is a means of creating wealth. Wealth is a means of creating a great life. But personal joy must be cultivated along the way. So that was one of the myths. The other myth that I really liked was the acquisition of wealth is a win/lose game. It's not. If the rich keep getting richer, do the poor keep getting poorer? Thanks to inaccuracies in the media and omissions in our nation's universities, the truth regarding this matter is seldom heard, is what he says. He says, here's the reality of the situation. You're not becoming rich will benefit no one. But you becoming rich benefits others in an abundance of ways. Wealthy individuals build factories, which create jobs, healthy economy, they invest in real estate, provide housing, and make tax contributions, and all this stuff. It goes on, but so it's a fact that the more wealth and opportunities you create for yourself, the more wealth and opportunities you create for others. So again, somebody else doesn't have to lose for you to win.
Yeah, I think this is like inverting the outcome, like Charlie Munger, right? It's like, okay, so let's invert it. Then nobody becomes wealthy, nobody becomes rich,
right.
Nobody has excess margin, nobody pays tax, nobody creates jobs. Like, so would you rather have that happen? To make, so you're right. I think the myth of somehow that being rich or having a lot of wealth equals something that's negative is just it's just flat out foolishness. So, okay, I like that. That's good. That's good. By the way, people want to check out Joel's book. You go to joelmillerbooks.com, joelmillerbooks.com, and he just talk about how to build wealth in real estate and enjoy the journey. Okay, so we've talked about mindset. We've talked about the differences between wealthy and rich. Any last questions before we go to the lightning round, Joel, about what you might want to just make sure everyone hears today?
No, that's it.
Awesome. So let's go to the lightning round. What would you say is your biggest frustration when it comes to the 1031 exchange?
My biggest frustration for the 1031 exchange is that it can be hard to understand sometimes. There's a lot of gotchas there. Just to answer briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it can be like, the 45-day 180 shotgun wedding. And like people don't understand like how quickly those timelines can go, and then you end up overpaying for a property. Number two, what would you say you're most curious about right now?
What I'm most curious about right now is, can I say this? How to sell more of my books, being on podcasts. How do I do that? But that's going really well, and I appreciate you having me on. But I'm most curious about podcasts recently.
Okay, yeah, that's cool, awesome. It's a great answer. Question number three: number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by.
Well, it's what I already said. Is don't make a withdrawal from a good relationship to make a deposit in your bank account. That's what I would try.
Awesome. Yes, perfect. That's perfect. Next question. How are you best using ChatGPT?
I can't say that I've ever used it.
Okay.
So fair enough. I mean, I'm just it just doesn't interface with what I am doing at the moment.
Yep. All good. Last question. How do you best stay centered in your values, Joel, and then stay encouraged to charge even higher heights?
Charge even
higher heights. Like once you accomplish a goal, you're like, I'm going to conquer this next big goal.
How do I stay centered?
Yeah.
Well, it's to continue thinking about some of the things that we talked about earlier, with understanding the differences between riches and wealth, and what's my actual goal here. It's my goal is not a certain number of units to own, or a certain number of or a certain amount of a net worth or an amount of income. My goal is to live my life well, and if you look at things through that lens, in terms of not only your finances but your health and your relationships and all those things, I focus on just doing whatever I do, doing the right things the right way, and not cutting corners, not getting other people to look the other way, so I can have my way somehow. I just stay focused on doing things the right way, and then all those other things fall into place.
Amazing. Joel Miller, I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing your wisdom with us, defining the difference between wealth, riches versus wealth. I want to encourage you to keep using your gifts to help people build wealth within real estate, right? How to build it and have joy along the way with their relationships and their life. And for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, we remind them one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
For the website that is dedicated to the book, it's joelmillerbooks.com, JOEL for Joel, Miller. Books is plural.com, and you can see on the homepage there the entire table of contents for the book, and get an idea what we're talking about in the book. And then another button you can click on the homepage is a few of the key paragraphs from each of the chapters.
Awesome.
So I know that your listeners are a little further along in their journey, although this book is for people that already have a portfolio and they're looking for some game-changing information that'll take them to another level. But it's also for people that are just starting out, or for people that don't think real estate is for them. So, but knowing that your audience is a little further down the road, I would say this: maybe you're like me, where I'm pretty far down the road, but I have a 19-year-old son. He just graduated from high school last year, and he bought his first rental property about a week after he got out of high school. And as we record this, he's ready to close later this week on his second one. I wrote this book for him. And I wrote it as though he might be the only one that reads it. So there's nothing in here that I wouldn't recommend to my own son, who is down the hall and holding me accountable, even though most of the readers I will never meet and they won't hold me accountable. It's so you can be sure if you're reading this book that there's no BS in here.
Awesome.
This is so what I would say is this is a great book for you who are down the road a bit to give to somebody behind you, your children, or somebody else that you know that wants to get to where you are.
Perfect. Awesome, Joel Miller. Great thought to land on there. And thank you again for being on the show. Also want to thank all of our listeners for listening to an episode of the Building Buildings podcast. We're also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channels. And we're on this journey with you to scale from millions to billions. So we can give more, all of it away to help MVPs. We encourage you to take action today. Think about a mindset of abundance. Think about a mindset of wealthy and with your relationships. And remember, never trade, or withdraw from a relationship, right? To increase your bank account. Never make that trade. Appreciate everyone listening or watching out there, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Bye now.